The format for this meeting is a 10-minute speaker, our secretary's announcements, a coffee and snack break, and our main speaker. Our first speaker for tonight is Shaun.
Hi, my name is Shaun. I'm an alcoholic. So experience, strength, and hope, and what happened, what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. Basically, drugs and alcohol saved my life. I wouldn't be here today without them. When I was 12, alcohol let me sleep at night, turned a boring night into a roller coaster of my vision. When I was 14, smoking weed allowed me to feel absolutely comfortable in my skin at all moments. And I chased that with every drink or drug that came after that. This was like really bad. My entire using, even though it saved my life, was also a suicide run. It was slowly killing me, slowly taking every bit of my life away from me, whether it was my family, my education, money, my well-being, my mental health, or even like the place I lived. Couldn't take care of myself. I couldn't do anything. And I was absolutely a shell of a human being, as a lot of people would say, either when I came in this last time or when I came in the first time. This isn't my first time getting sober, but my sobriety date is January 14th, 2023, so I have 15 months. Thank you. Before this, my longest sobriety was 60 days, and after that, it was in and out of the rooms. I couldn't get more than that after that. I came to a meeting, don't remember those first kind of 40, 50 days. Came to my first meeting in Los Angeles, and I hit a meeting in Venice. And that's where I met my first real sponsor. And that's where I started the 1, 2, 3 shuffle. I don't think I ever actually got past the third step until this sobriety. I literally just bullshitted. I fellowshipped until 2 a.m., I'd hit meetings, but then I started hitting meetings loaded, and I started nodding out in meetings, or I started taking shots before meetings, or I started smoking weed in my car before I went to a meeting and after a meeting, because if I did that, I can actually sit through the meeting and maybe get something out of it. And that was the only thing I did right, was I just kept showing up. Literally, I did nothing right in that first year and a half besides show up. And that brought a lot of really beautiful people into my life and a community that I wouldn't have today without that. And that's the good thing, is people remember me. The other day I was at a meeting and I shared I had 15 months and how I struggle with certain things sometimes. And this lady who came up to me, who husband used to reach out to me when I first got sober the first time, and she goes, "I didn't know you had that long, but I know that the person in front of me today is a complete person than I used to see that couldn't get a day." She said, you have weight on your shoulders and you stand taller. You have a smiling face and you actually look like there's a human behind those eyes. And to hear that from someone who didn't even know how much time I had, who had seen me come in and out, whose husband always just for some reason talked to me at meetings, because I was no nerves to talk to anyone else. But when I got through the steps, I started doing them with my sponsor, like everyone else who actually wants to stay sober. And I didn't get that much out of the fourth and fifth step. I didn't have that huge spiritual experience. I didn't have that whole psychic change, but the psychic change did come before and after. Before that was the gifts of desperation and the willingness that came into these rooms this last time. I had literally hit Schitt's Creek and I had nothing else to do, so I thought might as well try and get sober. My fifth step went on. I did the whole meditation for hour, half hour after. I was like, okay, cool. Finished my fifth step. I'm in a sober living, so I can get my phone back and I can hopefully leave the house alone. And that didn't come right away. Fast forward, 6, 7 brought an awareness of how shitty of a person I am, even sober. The fourth step literally told me things I already knew, was that I'm literally an asshole who can't do anything right. But 6 and 7 brought the awareness. 8 and 9 started writing on the people I had harmed, and was like, okay, now I actually got to do this. And that's where I had the first kind of real spiritual experience. I made amends to my dad. He cried, I almost cried. You know the drill. But what was kind of insane was when I made amends to my mom. And that was the moment I knew I'm one of you guys. I knew that my fellows are in this room right now. My fellows are at every meeting I go to. My fellows are the ones in my phone that I call every day. I got through the first part of the amends, and I got to the point where, is there anything I left out? My mom said to me, you probably don't remember this, but one night you were on drugs, and you chased me around the house with a knife. You came in with a knife and yelling, I'm going to kill you. First thought was, I have no recollection of this. I can't even fathom the thought in my brain of what it looked like. I had in a full blackout. I can't even remember what happened after this. None of it. And then my second thought was, oh, I've heard this before in a meeting. I'm one of you guys. I know it. And I already did know it. But that just brought me even closer to you guys, was making amends to my mom. And my mom's sitting right there. And this is the first time my parents have ever been to a meeting with me, and this is the first time my parents have ever heard me speak. My parents didn't give up on me, even though they had to set boundaries, and God bless them for all the shit I put them through, especially that. Threatening them. I'm not like this. Our using isn't pretty. It never was. We're destructive. We're unstable. Everything we touch either will crumble in our hand or we'll slowly take it apart. Because of this program, I can have them in my life. I can spend the day with them. I can grab food with them. I can talk to my dad about my own finances. This last time I got sober at 2 months before my 20th birthday, and I just turned 21. Yeah, I hit my bottom pretty quickly. I kind of think of this as a funny joke, and I tell my sponsee, is like, for me to have more time sober than I did using, I'd have to have more than 8 years. And someone brought that up, and it was like, because my friend, he got sober at 16, and he just passed that point. And I was like, okay, it's going to take more than double that to even clean up some of the wreckage of my past. Because in my using, I'm way down here. When I get sober, I'm about here, and this is where everyone else competes at. It's going to take me forever to even get to that point to where I can compete at a normal level, but I know if I show up here, I'm just scraping by is what a normal person can do. Because without this program, I'm literally like every other dude that I literally saw on the street getting today while I was coming home from my parents' house, getting helped by the paramedics who's passed out in the bushes. And I see 3 paramedics trying to get this guy out of the street. And that happened today on our way home. The last thing I love to tell is I love my sponsee, love this kid to death. He's 15. Yeah, and I met him at a punk show, like a backyard punk concert, and so what happened was I see my friend who I came to the show with, he's also sober, talking to this kid. I'm like, oh, yo, what's up, dude? And he's like, he points at me and goes, yeah, this guy's straight edge. And I'm like, and the kid's like, no way, you're straight edge? And I was like, okay, for you guys you don't know, straight edge is like the term in like the punk scene where like you're sober, you're abstinent, whatever it is. And I was like, oh, like, I guess I'm straight edge. I'm sober though, like, yeah. Because to me, straight edge means like, oh, like, you don't smoke cigarettes and you hate like minorities and other people. But hey, like, it's evolved since then, where it first started. Some people do actually say that they are. It's a whole thing. I don't need to get into that. And the kid's like, oh yeah, like, I claim straight edge, but like, I still drink sometimes. I'm like, okay, cool. And then this kid walks up, and this kid is so drunk. And his girlfriend goes, hey, these guys are straight edge. And he goes, you're straight edge, dude? And I go, yeah, I'm sober. And he's like, man, I've always wanted to get sober. And I was like, dude, I mean, take my number, take my Instagram, because that's what a 15-year-old wants to hear. I'm like, yeah, reach out sometime. I'm just thinking nothing, like it's a kid who's drunk. He's telling me he's 640s deep. It's a lot for a 15-year-old. He's telling me how he's just going back and forth between the bathroom. So the show goes on. I'm smoking a cigarette, as a sober guy does at a punk show, because we got nothing better to do besides moshing. And he comes up to me, he's like, hey, dude, can I get a cigarette? I'm like, no, I'm not giving a 15-year-old a cigarette. I know I'm underage for smoking, but I'm not giving you a cigarette. And he goes, dude, he starts begging me. I'm like, no. He goes, I really wouldn't be begging for a cigarette right now if my dad didn't pass away this morning from alcoholism. And I go, okay, I'm sorry that happened. Here's your cigarette. I tell this kid, he goes on his way. He's like, oh, I got to leave. He says bye to us before he leaves. I'm like, hey, dude, like, reach out whenever you can. So the next day is that kid's sobriety date. I don't see this kid again until that Friday. And he comes to the meeting, and I'm like, kind of explaining what an AA meeting is, and he sits in it. First half, there's a break, and he's like, okay, I don't think AA is for me. I know I can will this on my own. Verbatim, that's what he says. I know on my own will I can stay sober. He says, I don't need this. And I go, okay, good luck with that. You have my number? Call me every day. He's like, okay, sure. And I'm like, yeah, I just want to make sure you're alive and you're okay. He's like, okay, that's fair. I like that. Then we're sitting at the coffee bar at the South Bay Alano Club, and my friend's like, oh, do you have a sponsor? And he's like, no, what's that? And they explain to him what a sponsor is, and he looks at me and he goes, do you want to be my sponsor? And I go, sure. He goes, okay, what do we do from here? I go, call me every day. And he goes, okay. That kid has 107 days sober now, and he just finished his second step. He lives with a meth addict, which is his brother, who's his mom's getting a restraining order against right now. He's going through some of the stuff that, like, I wouldn't want anyone to go through. And I thought I put other people into bad stuff. Like, I came at mom with a knife. I nodded out behind the wheel after punching a dude in the face 50 miles from my house. And my parents found me in my car. This isn't like a program for people that want to just skate by and stick at a meeting and not want to stay sober. No, like, this is for people who are here because we have no other option. And if you want to stick around, you got to do the fucking steps. Because literally, like, I wouldn't be here right now if it weren't for that. Because after I came in the rooms, I punched a guy in the face in a blackout and ended up nodding out behind the wheel by a cliff after I tried getting sober the first time because I wasn't working a program. But I'm here today because I actually listen to what my sponsor says. I listen to what the guys who came before me, like Rob. I come to these guys when I need anything. The men, the women at the Alano Club, any of my fellows, my friends, it's the same thing. I just come to you guys with anything, and I'm okay. I'm still here today, and I'm in sober living at 15 months sober. Like, I got 3 jobs. I'm in school full time, and I got like an apprenticeship. A dude like me who tries to hurt people when they're in their use shouldn't be in the place I'm at today. I'm a 2-time college dropout. But I'm here today able to speak in front of you with 15 months being like, I have a sponsee who's going through it that had it worse than me. There's always someone's going to have it worse, and you can always do the steps and show up to a meeting. It's that simple. Thank you.
God, the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Now our main speaker will share her experience, strength, and hope with us. Please join me in welcoming Rob from... Where are you from, Rob? Where are you from?
I'm from Redondo Beach.
Oh, Rob is from Redondo Beach.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Rob Driscoll, and I am an alcoholic. Hi, everyone. It's great to be here. Kind of a hard act to follow, but it's an honor and a privilege to be one of the main speakers here. And, I stand here, a average social drinker with an above-average blackout problem, similar to what Shaun described. And I'm neither ashamed nor embarrassed to admit that I am a real alcoholic, but that my real problem is Rob. My sobriety date is March 27, 1993. I got sober in West Palm Beach, Florida. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. And my current sponsor is Michael B., not the Michael B. that you've seen up here on the stage, a different Michael B. And I refer to Michael as my current sponsor because I find that it keeps both of us, definitely both of us, on our toes. And my home group is the Monday night, 7 o'clock, Back to Basics Men's Stag up on the hill at the Mary and Joseph Center. And it's back to basics for a reason, and I need to be at a men's stag that's back to basics. And so if there's any men here that are interested in a good men's stag meeting, we'd love to have you join us up at the Mary and Joseph's on Monday night at 7 o'clock. You know, it's, I look out at this group of familiar faces and some new faces, but I'm awakened in the fellowship of the Spirit that's alive and well on these hallowed grounds here. And, you know, it's the safest. I love the name of this meeting, the Sanctuary Group. I feel safe and at home here. And I have to say, the thing that separates me from you is your humility. I certainly have very little of it, as you'll probably come to learn in these remarks that I'm about to offer to you. But, you know, we're all here in this thing together, and I do feel the fellowship of the Spirit alive and well here, as I've mentioned. And it's good to see you here, and it's good to be here, and I thank Joe for inviting me to speak here. And before I go any further, I want to add to what Alan said earlier. Can we just give it up one more time to Shaun for such a great message? You know, Shaun, as I stand here now, I can tell you with complete certainty that I have no idea whether my parents, who have passed on and who are no longer with us on earth, but hopefully resting in peace in the heavens above, I can tell you with total certainty that I have no idea whether they were proud of me when they left this earth. I can only hope and pray that that is the case, but I don't know that for any degree of certainty at all. But what is very clear and very certain in my mind, that everybody in this room is incredibly proud of you. I am very proud of you. And your parents, Bruce and Jody, who are here tonight, are unspeakably proud of the man that you have become here. And, you know, your age, what, 21? I can promise you one other thing, that when I was your age, my life had no purpose, meaning, and direction in it. Certainly, the life that I was living at age 21 doesn't look anything like the life that you're living. So thank you for being a source of strength to me and a tremendous inspiration. You know, the people that came after me give me that certain inspiration, that certain fire in the belly that I need to have, because I've been around just long enough to accrue too many years and not enough days. And you remind me of how important living just a day at a time really is. You know, each day is a new beginning, and seeing young men like you find purpose, meaning, and direction for your lives, and to do it with such passion, conviction, and enthusiasm, how can you not be impacted by that? So thank you. I'm very proud of you. Well done. You know, our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what we used to be like, not what it, but what we used to be like, what happened, and what we are like now. You know, I don't have a whole lot of time to get into the drunkalogue, and I don't think it's really important, frankly. I am qualified to be here. I am an expert blackout drinker, magna cum laude caliber blackout drinker. And I probably owe amends to the state of Maine, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Connecticut, New York, Wisconsin, and Illinois and Minnesota for driving under the influence and being pulled over and passing sobriety tests in each one of those states. I probably need to go back and make some amends to those people. I am, as a product of my blackout drinking, did commit fraud on a couple of loan applications and had to make restitution for that. I'm ashamed and embarrassed to admit that I even embezzled from a private not-for-profit institution, had to make restitution for that. I was a liar, cheat, thief, womanizer, and I couldn't be trusted with your life or your money at all. And, you know, it all came to a grinding halt. My love, my admiration, and my affection for alcohol obliterated everything and every person in its wake and in its path, you know, and so I'm definitely qualified to be here. So when I stand here and tell you what I'm like now, I would say to you this. I would say that I am a man who seeks to be a man or a person of courage, integrity, leadership, curiosity, concern, and compassion. Those are the things that I aspire to be. And as we stand here on these hallowed grounds and in this room, I also am a man who thirsts for the fruit of love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, humility, and self-control. Scripture would tell us and define those attributes as the fruit of the Spirit. And I, therefore, thrive and try to be nourished by the fruit of the Spirit and try to live by the bonds of courage, integrity, leadership, curiosity, concern, and compassion for others. That's who I am now. And everything that I have now, everything that I am now is as a direct result of Alcoholics Anonymous. Every dream that I ever dreamt has come true and then some. The gifts that have been given so freely to me far exceed any of the expectations or goals that I would have ever had when I walked into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. Everything that I am, I owe to you in the fellowship of AA. I come from a large family and with a lot of alcoholics in that family, led by my mom. Her sobriety date was July 10, 1975. And we'll talk a little bit more about Mom later in this story. But, that's who I am now. But what I was like then, well, you heard a little bit of a thumbnail sketch of it. And so as I stand here too with this pinstripe suit on, standing before you, sharing my story, it occurs to me that I am not the man I could have been, and I'm probably not the man that I should have been. But I am a man who was a lot better off than the man who walked in the door of the Triangle Club on 4th Street in West Palm Beach, Florida, on Saturday, March 27, 1993, at the age of 30, having lost everything that mattered: the love of my family, the affection of my friends, the respect of my colleagues. The woman of my dreams, who I asked to marry me, said no, because she was of the belief that she could no longer compete with the alcohol. So I lost it all. I lost every dollar, every asset. I was homeless. I was living out of a car. No job, no friends, no family, no one to turn to. So I came to yet another AA meeting. I first started coming into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous in the winter of 1985, in and out for that 7-year stretch. And the reason was because I felt that the steps that were outlined on the wall was a journey in dime store spirituality run amok. And there it was, the God word. And I had no idea what God had to do with any of my problems. When I was in college, I managed to graduate from that school. I have no idea how I did it, but I picked up a degree in history, and I was drunk all the way. But in order to get that piece of paper, I had to study theology, sociology, psychology, and I became very confused about the existence of a supernatural being in my life. Even though I grew up in a very Christian household, I shudder as I stand here now to admit that I was about as agnostic gets when I came to my first AA meeting. And I had to wait until the very end of the meeting to pick up that surrender chip on that Saturday, March 27, 1993, age 30. So you can do the math. I'm 31 years sober, so I'm 61 years of age now. And that means that over half of my life has been spent in a space of sober living. That is to say, at least the good news is that I haven't picked up a drink. I've done a lot of other things wrong, but I haven't gotten a drink so far. I haven't put anything in my milk. I say to you that I am third. My God and my sobriety come first. My family, my friends, my colleagues, you come second, and I am third. That's the mantra that I try to lead by and live by. Because if I put anything ahead of my God and my sobriety, then I am no longer third, I am wrong. And I'm wrong more than I care to admit that I'm right. But the one thing that I've gotten right so far is I haven't had to pick up a drink. When I came to that meeting, I was introduced immediately by a towering figure by the name of Harry Hamilton, who told me that he was going to become my sponsor. I didn't ask him. He just said, my name is Harry, and I am going to be your sponsor. I know people in your circle, and so I now need to know you a little bit more. So effective immediately, you are going to go to meetings with me every day for the next 30 days, and you will make your bed before you arrive at that meeting. And all you have to worry about is don't drink, go to meetings, you'll be all right. That was his cadence call. There was very little dialogue with Harry in the first 30 days, really. It was, just call me every day and let me know which meeting you want to go to, and I'll see you there. And how you doing today? Don't drink, go to meetings, you'll be all right. Not that it was going to be all right, but that I would be all right. And after 30 days, we went in and had a steak dinner with his sponsor, Gifteen. And they sat me down and they said, Robbie, we've been looking over, they call me Robbie. We've been looking over your situation, Robbie, and we've determined that the best course of action for you to is 10 meetings every day of the week for the next 90 days, which I thought it was just inhumane and punitive. But I went along with it. I listened to these guys. And they said to me, there's no getting around this. You are smarter than the two of us combined, but the problem is you don't know shit. You're the kind of guy that lives like a wounded bird. Most birds, they told me, have the wherewithal and the common sense to fly the nest before they take a crap on somebody's windshield. But you're not that kind of bird. You're the kind of bird that would just wallow and nest in your own shit. And that's who you are, and that's why you're here. So we're going to try to build some foundation in that nest and fix those broken wings and send you on your way. But in order to do that, GIF is going to take you through the steps. So it was a short while later that I had my first meeting with GIF. And he handed me a big book. And he told me to read The Doctor's Opinion and A Vision for You first. Those were my reading assignments. And to read them with a careful eye, and I did. And I was struck by what it said in the Doctor's Opinion, especially the section where it says we must be grounded in a power greater than ourselves if we are to recreate our lives. That jumped out at me. That's the doctor talking. I come from a background of a long 30-year background in clinical research and development, so my concept of medicine is very different than the kind of wisdom that was imparted by Dr. Soakworth. He was not my kind of doctor in the beginning, but he certainly is now. And when I read A Vision for You, as GIF had instructed me to do, I was immediately awestruck by the arc of our journey that we're taking on. It takes us from the beginning into the end. And we are confronted once again with the hard-won realization that we are beset by those hideous four horsemen: terror, bewilderment, frustration, and despair. So I did something very academic. I looked up those words. And I realized that the big book right then and there was introducing me to myself. And so then GIF sat me down and said, we are going to work the steps in order, because I was very interested in working 4, 5, 8, and 9 and get the heavy lifting right out of the way. But that's not how GIF was to have it. We are going to work the steps in order for a reason. And so that's what we did. But before we got into step work, GIF peppered me with some very, very difficult and profound questions that I needed to come to terms with. And the first were really two questions in one. And he asked me, Robbie, who are you? And why are you here? Now, I know you don't know the answers to those questions. You're 30 years old. You should probably start contemplating the answers to those questions. But I know better that you don't know. Who are you and why are you here? Sure enough, I had no clue. But his promise to me was that if I worked the steps in order to the best of my ability, that I would discover the answer to those questions, and the journey would be the destination, and the joy that I would discover in my life would come from the seeking to find the answers to those profound questions. Who am I and why am I here? GIF then asked me, why do you drink so much? Why do you think you drink? Well, I like the way it tastes. I like the way it smells. I like what it does to my head. I like the smoke. I like the noise. I like the women. I like the confusion, and I like the bullshit. I mean, that's why I drink so much. Yeah, I get that. But why do you really drink so much? I couldn't dig any further than that. So GIF did some of that heavy lifting for me. He says, Robbie, my theory is that you drink so much because you're too busy remembering the things you ought to forget, and too busy forgetting the things that you ought to remember. Write it down. The things I ought to forget. The things I ought to remember. That's why you drink too much. And then he asked me the real acid question. What's important to you, Robbie? What's important to you today? Well, my job, my reputation, my family, my friends. Well, let's see. You have no job. You have no family left. You have no friends. So you have no money left. So what's to say of your reputation? That's pretty much in the crapper as well. So let me repeat the question. What's important to you? He said to me that we only have control over two things in our lives, Robbie. Our time and our money. So show me your calendar and your checkbook, and I'll tell you exactly what's important to you. Well, I show him my calendar and my check. You know what's there. You know, my life centered around King Alcohol and nothing more. There was no other destination for me. I wasn't living the life that Shaun lives today. There was no purpose, meaning, and direction for me. I'd lost it all. I needed help. And I wanted the help that you would provide. I just didn't know how to ask, and I didn't know what it would mean. But I kept working with GIF, and I started working the steps, and the lights started coming on, especially when he told me that the dash sign in the first step was equivalent to the dash to the equal sign in mathematics. That is to say that I was powerless over alcohol because my life had become unmanageable, and my life had become unmanageable because I was powerless over alcohol. I was able to sign on to that right away. I was a little bit uncomfortable with the notion of pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization. I was willing to spot pitiful demoralization, but the incomprehensible part was a little bit of a stretch, even for me, even though I had, living out of a car, and I couldn't comprehend that I was, a pitiful case, but in an incomprehensible case, but I was. But I did what Harry kept saying that I should do. Don't drink, go to meetings, you'll be all right. Not that it'll be all right, but you will. The world around you won't be. Your circumstances won't be, but you will. Don't drink, go to meetings, you'll be all right. The best and worst kept secret in AA is if you don't drink, you won't get drunk. So just go to meetings and you'll be all right. Work those steps with GIF, and I kept doing that. The step work saved me from myself, especially when I got into doing my third step and recognizing that I had the opportunity to describe my definition, my concept of God, the God of mercy, grace, and love. That's my God. That's the God that I defined for myself then. It wasn't a doorknob. It wasn't a mailbox. It wasn't the ocean. It wasn't a tree. It was the God of mercy, grace, and love. An unpunishing God, a loving God. That's the God that I needed to believe in. That's the God that I needed to hang my hat on. That's the God that I needed to shine a light on my future, my present. That's the God that I needed to help to shine a light on my past so that I can reconcile all of the wrongdoing that went on. But when I did my fifth step, the weight of the world was lifted off of my shoulders. And when I did my sixth and seventh step, I came to realize that step 6 is like driving on a flat tire. Or step 6 is a defect, a flat tire, and step 7 is continuing to drive on a flat tire. And once I was able to reconcile what step 6 and 7 mean, all GIF ever wanted from me was to find a pathway to humility. And I'm still searching for that long, faraway, distant shore of humility, but maybe someday I'll get there. But step work led me into the world of sponsorship and in service. And I never wanted to sponsor anybody. I did not want for that at all. I avoided it like the plague. But as soon as I started working with other guys after having completed the steps and getting a couple of years under my belt, I came to realize that working with others in that way did more for me than it ever did for them. And I've sponsored and continue to sponsor a long list of guys, and it's the holy grail in this program, at least for me, working with others. It's just been the greatest joy and the greatest form of giving back, all that has been so freely given to me. So I started working with a lot of different people, and along the way, in my 31 years, if I thought I had it bad when I was drinking, man, things hit the fan when I got sober. I watched my parents outlive 3 of their children. I watched my parents outlive a grandchild. I lost jobs. One job's lost more. And I got married. I got divorced. And I watched a sponsee commit suicide. And I say these things not to elicit sympathy or to invoke drama here. I say these things to you because they're facts of my life and they're a part of my journey in recovery. And as I say these things to say that that mantra certainly came to pass and to be true for me. All through it, all I had to worry about, don't drink, go to meetings, you'll be all right. Don't drink, go to meetings, you, Rob, will be all right. Why does God take away my niece, Tawny? Why is my brother Tom, my brother Rick no longer with us? Why is that? Why is it that my older sister Debbie right now is dealing with a hideous battle with cancer as we speak? Why is it that when I got married, my wife was diagnosed with stage 4 metastatic breast cancer that spread into her belly? And thank God the company I was working for at the time, Amgen, a giant pharmaceutical biotech company in Thousand Oaks, gave me a year off so that we can get Maureen the kind of care that she needed to save her life. And it was during that time that I met a fellow by the name of Blake Vogel. Blake would not mind it at all if I revealed his full name to you, because Blake and I have been on the road together in a number of different circles. Blake works for the PGA of America. At that time, it was based in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida, where I was in residence taking care of my very ill wife and her mother, who was also diagnosed at the same time. And so I found meetings in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida at the time, and Blake became one of my guys. And, you know, I helped Blake for a year, and I also helped my wife get better. And I saw Blake fight through trial after tribulation and get back to California. My wife is in full remission from stomach cancer, breast cancer, and the whole shot. And she just got kind of tired of me. And one morning she confronted me out of a dead sleep, and it was on a Saturday. I'm really sick and tired of you having to be so right all the time. It must be lonely to be as perfect as you are. And of course, I made a very serious strategical tactical error in response to that remark and said to her, well, now that you bring it up, it is kind of lonely to be right all the time. And it was right then and there that she demanded a divorce. And it was right then and there that I got a phone call that my brother Tom was near the end of his life. And it was right then and there that I also got another call saying that my father's hours were numbered. Tom died first, child number 3 to my parents, and then my father passed away shortly after that. And my wife moved out and then moved back in, and I moved out. And I lost my job at Amgen. Don't drink. Go to meetings. You'll be all right. Right. Straight edge dork standing here before you, having a little bit of a moment thinking about these things, and contemplating. I've told this story many times, and it still seems to catch up with me. So in the midst of all of that going on, I did what I had to do, help other guys. And my father indeed passed away, and I was asked to deliver the eulogy at his service. Go figure. A son that he wanted nary anything to do with when I walked into the rooms. And my family picked me to deliver his eulogy in Winnetka, Illinois. To be able to speak and lend tribute to his life and his times and a life well lived. And it was an honor and a privilege to do that before so many family and friends and so many dignitaries and luminaries. It was a phenomenal experience for me personally. Later on, after my divorce was completed, I moved on with my life, and Maureen as well, and she's on her way, and now I'm faced to look in the mirror in the morning and try to convince myself it's fun being a romantic single, isn't it? You know, and then it happened. Elizabeth Vogel called me up and told me that Blake has been in a car accident and wants to see you. And so I flew on a plane and got him into sober living, and he's back into recovery. And after that happened, I went to a meeting to gather my thoughts, and who's there but Gifford Dean. I haven't seen Gifford Dean in decades. There are no coincidences in God's world. Yogi Berra says it best. Coincidences are too coincidental to be coincidences. And so there's GIF. And I was able to answer the questions that came to pass when he asked me them. We were at a 12-step meeting, and I sat next to him decades later and was proud to announce to him and to that group exactly who I am. My name is Rob Driscoll, and I'm an alcoholic. I'm neither ashamed nor embarrassed to admit that fact of my life. My primary purpose for being here on this earth is to make recovery possible for those who seek it. I strive to be a man of courage, integrity, leadership, curiosity, concern, and compassion for others. I try to be nourished by the fruit of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, patience, self-control, and humility. I am third. My God and my sobriety are one and the same. I can't have one without the other. You, my family, my friends, my colleagues come second. I must be third. And I will finish with this. My mother sat me down at the end of her life and said to me, "Your music and your sobriety define you." I should say that I was sent away to a school for really, really bad kids when I was age 17, and they had a piano there, just like that one. And I taught myself how to play it in the summer and fall of 1979. I've never looked back. There's only one thing I know how to do on this earth, and that is play a piano and play it really well. And that's because I didn't stop playing it. The piano suddenly obliterated everything in its path. And so my mother, who said to me when I first came into the program, "When the student is ready, the teacher will appear." And at the end of her life, she said, "Your music and your sobriety define you. And they're two precious gifts that have been granted to you by the loving grace of God, but they are yours, but not to keep. They're yours to give away." And so I made a promise to my mother right then and there, holding her hands near as she was at the end of her life. And before making that promise, I sat up in the hospital bed, and she said to me, "I don't want you to remember me this way." "How is that, Mom?" Well, tubes out of my ass, tubes out of my nose, tubes out of my arms, tubes. "Well, Mom, the other people here are wrapped up in hospital-issued gowns. You're wearing your Ralph Lauren jammies. That's going to be hard to forget that." But I told her everything there was to tell her about being her youngest son and one of hers. And she said to me, as I mentioned to you, what my two gifts are. And I made a promise back to her. I would keep the music playing, that every note I strike and every chord I sing would belong to her, but it would be there for whoever would care to listen. I will continue to, Mom, to carry the message of experience that has been granted to me by my many years of service and of fellowship in this program. I will also carry the message of strength, the strength that has only been given to me by a power greater than myself, who I choose to call God, the God of mercy, grace, and love. And most of all, and most importantly, I will carry the message of hope. The hope for tomorrow that springs eternally for all of us today who choose to stay sober, just a day at a time. I know exactly who I am today and why I'm here. My name is Rob Driscoll. I am an alcoholic, and I'm very proud to be here tonight. Thank you for having me, and you guys have been great tonight.
I would like to thank our speakers, Shaun and Rob, and our readers, Mike and Jim.